and welcome to today's show. I'm Jamie Smith, Cancer Control Specialist with the Kentucky Cancer Program. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Tom Cooper with the Cooper-Clayton method, and he's here to talk to us today about his program and what it all entails. Dr. Cooper, welcome to today's show.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming and joining us today. If you would, just take a few minutes and tell a little bit about yourself and how in the world you ended up as the co-creator of a smoking cessation program.
When I was 17, I joined the National Guard, and the first break, the first week, First Sergeant said, let's take a cigarette break. If you got cigarettes, smoke them. If you don't, bum them. I didn't have any. I got tired of bumming, so I bought my first pack of cigarettes in 1947. I thought I was so mature and going to be so sexy with that cigarette. Well, 36 years later, I find myself in Anaheim, California, lecturing, and I'm so short of breath because of my 36 years of smoking, I could barely finish the day lecturing. So I came home to Lexington, Kentucky, and decided I had to do something to make my life different. And I put together this program working with my colleague, Dr. Richard Clayton, and we've been doing this now for 25 years. All
right. And you were a professor of dentistry as well, correct? And so it's quite ironic that a professor of dentistry was actually one that smoked for 36 years.
Well, I actually was a cigarette smoker first and a dentist second. Because when you smoke,
That's true.
When you smoke, the cigarette controls your life. You don't realize how much it controls your life.
Right.
But I came in, and actually there was a Reader's Digest article that was published that week. And I came home from Anaheim, California, walked into the house, found this article on the kitchen table. And it said, how to stop smoking using the new nicotine gum. Well, I'd never tried this. I'd tried about every 5 years during the 36 years I smoked to stop smoking. And I went through a miserable experience every time that I did. So I said, what have I got to lose?
Right.
So I purchased the nicotine gum, read the directions, and the manufacturer had a good product, but they had a couple of things that might make it better. And so I incorporated those into this program. And here 25 years later, we're still having phenomenal success with the basic concept, Jamie. The smoker's brain at one time does not think that nicotine is important. So they start smoking, and the nicotinic receptor sites in the brain increase in number. And so the brain starts crying for more and more nicotine. And when it doesn't get it, it has a temper tantrum.
Right.
And the smoker is driven back to the store to buy more cigarettes. Now, at the same time that the brain is developing more of the nicotinic receptor sites, the liver is creating more enzymes to get rid of nicotine. So we have two systems fighting each other. So what we're trying to do is to find a balance so that we can keep the brain from having a temper tantrum and give the liver enzymes an opportunity to downregulate or decrease in number so that the nicotine we're putting in meets the brain's needs.
Right.
So we've been doing this now. We use the nicotine patch, or the nicotine lozenge, or the nicotine gum, and primarily the patch and the lozenge now, they seem to work better than the other products.
Okay. So what makes the Cooper-Clayton method different from any other smoking cessation program that's out there?
If you look at the research, people who go through formal treatment programs for heroin, alcohol, and nicotine, you enter them now into another study to see how long it takes them to relapse. An amazing similarity in the relapse. The first 12 weeks is high risk for relapse. And so this program is 12 weeks long, so we get them off of nicotine, actually off the cigarette.
Right.
And then slowly fade over 12 weeks the amount of nicotine they're getting so that the brain once again will accept zero nicotine as a normal amount.
Okay. And now one thing while they're going through this, you talked about that they're going to be on the nicotine replacement therapy and they're going to step down off of it. Is the person going to have withdrawal symptoms while they're going down off that, or is this going to keep them comfortable?
Almost none.
Okay.
What we try to do, the smoker lights a cigarette on a very regular basis. We first have them record every cigarette for the first week and continue smoking, which surprises most of them.
Hey, people like that support group
They
already,
like
right?
that. Yeah. So you're going to continue smoking, but I want you to make a little hash mark each time that you smoke a cigarette during this next week. And we find out the pattern in which they smoke and the total number of cigarettes they smoke. And then we try to give them about 80% replacement. We're not giving them as much nicotine as they get from the cigarette, but we give them enough so that they're not in withdrawal. And we can prevent the brain from having that temper tantrum it gets if you try to go cold turkey.
Right.
And then we slowly reduce that over a 12-week period of time until we get them down to 0. I'm very pleased to say that at 1 year, 40% of those who start the program are non-smokers.
And what about those that maybe are at home and have said, well, I quit cold turkey, but what is the actual percentage of people that can actually do that?
Cold turkey is not really a very efficient way to stop smoking. If 100 people in any community decide to go cold turkey, only 5 of them will be non-smokers 1 year from today.
It's not a good success rate.
Not a good way. If another 100 people purchase the nicotine gum or lozenge and try a program on their own and don't really have a system,
Right.
9 of them will be non-smokers. If we get 100 people to come to the Cooper-Clayton classes, 40 of them will be non-smokers 1 year from now, which is much, much more acceptable.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do they experience when they come into the Cooper-Clayton class? And so they're coming each week. What are they going to be doing during those 12 weeks?
Once they record every cigarette, they're provided with a book. We have a series of 12 12 actually videotapes on a DVD, and we show one of them each 7 days to show them what to expect during the following week. So we take the surprises out of it. We tell them how to prevent weight gain when they stop smoking, the role of exercise, how to deal with depression as a non-smoker, how to deal with stress as a non-smoker, to start thinking about the gains you've made in being a non-smoker versus poor me, I don't have my cigarette anymore.
Right. One thing that you just mentioned too was weight gain. That's a big subject with people when they're going through the class. And several people that I've met, they've always say, you know, I just gain so much weight every time I try to quit smoking, and so that's the reason for continuing to smoke is weight gain. And what exactly do you address in that class, in particular during that 1 week that we talk about that? What do you say to them?
The stimulating effects of the nicotine make the body idle faster. And so the body's idling speed, if you're sitting watching television, you're burning off 200 calories a day more than you would if you were a non-smoker. Okay. Well now, if I keep the same amount of calories going in and I go cold turkey and no longer have the nicotine, my body's metabolic rate slows down and I will start gaining weight. And every 18 days I will gain a pound. And I'll keep on gaining a pound every 18 days until carrying the extra weight around burns up 200 calories a day. Well, that's the hard way to do it.
Yeah.
There's a much easier way. In week 3, we tell them to start walking a half mile a day. So for 2 weeks, we encourage them to walk 1/2 mile a day. After that 2 weeks, add one other 1/2 mile. Now you're up to a mile a day for the next 2 weeks. Then add another 1/2 mile for weeks 3 and 4. And then by the time we get them up to week 8, we'll have them up to 2 miles. And interestingly, walking 2 miles burns off the 200 calories that smoking used to burn off.
Right.
So they break even.
That's great. Mm-hmm. And now I like to always hear your story about when you decided you were going to become a non-smoker, and Dr. Clayton talks about it in more detail in the video during the class, but you often say now you're in better health now than you were when you quit smoking. And so tell us kind of the exercise program you started and how you feel today.
I stopped smoking in 1984. I was 53 years of age. I decided I would whip my body into shape now that I'm no longer a smoker. So I laid down on the floor in the bedroom and I hooked my toes under the dresser and I tried to do some sit-ups. I could do 5. Mm-hmm. That's all I could do. But I did 5 every day that week, and I did 5 more every day the next week, and I did 5 more every day the next week. I now can do 50 sit-ups. And I walk 4 miles 3 days a week. That keeps me in good shape. I feel better at age 79 as a non-smoker than I did at 53 as a smoker.
Right.
And that's amazing.
Well, I tell you, I mean, I've just been blessed being able to know you for 2 years now, but you amaze me every time you tell that story. And I mean, you're in better shape than a lot of people I know my age. So.
Well, I'm trying to protect. It took some effort to get from smoker to non-smoker.
Right.
And once you spent that effort, you now would like to have the quality of life that is available to a non-smoker. You don't cough anymore. You save hundreds and hundreds of dollars a day.
That's true.
You can have more fun, so you might as well stay in good health to do that.
To enjoy it, right?
Yeah, that's right. But I started walking a half a mile a day, just like we tell the people, and then added another half a mile, and then another and another one. Got up to 2 miles, and then decided I would slowly increase it till now I do 4 miles. Yeah. And the beauty of it, after smoking 36 years, I can count a conversation while I'm walking 3 miles an hour, and I'm blessed.
That's great.
Yes,
That's
yes,
great.
yes.
Now, during the program, you talk about a journey, that these people that enroll in the class are going to take a journey from smoker to non-smoker. And one thing that I find interesting about the class is that you and Dr. Clayton tell us that we're not allowed to use the word quit. We can't say quit smoking. And so you want to talk about that?
The word quit's an ugly word in people's mind.
Yeah.
It's a negative term. And when people have tried to go cold turkey, they quit. And quit means boom. I just at this point said no more nicotine. Well, the brain can have a terrible temper tantrum if a smoker has been smoking 15, 20, 30 years and has given that brain all the nicotine it wanted every time it whimpered. The brain doesn't like that, and it has a king-size temper tantrum. What we're trying to find out is at what rate can we reduce the nicotine and not put the individual through the pain that they normally get. Quit is associated with cold turkey.
Right.
We're not going cold turkey. We don't want to use quit in relation to the Cooper-Clayton program. What we're doing is slowly going down the same stairway that the smoker went up years ago. Imagine, Jamie, smoker at one time was a non-user of nicotine. They started smoking probably 2 to 3 cigarettes a day, that's all. And they used a little more nicotine. Then they used a little bit more, and used a little bit more. And the brain developed more of these nicotinic receptor sites, and the liver developed more enzymes till they get up to here at this point. Now, if we try to go from there down to here, that's quit.
Right.
We don't do that. We walk them back down the same staircase.
Just a
and
gradual.
we take them back down, try to reduce just a little bit of nicotine at a time over a period of 10 to 12 weeks, and it is as close to painless as you will ever get.
So this is actually a program that you co-created with Dr. Clayton.
I was a smoker, and he was the illegal drug expert, and I rung him in to help me.
There you go. So you actually went through this program.
Oh, yes.
So you can actually attest to the fact that it does work.
It does.
And you remained comfortable, and you actually did behavioral changes as well during the program.
Actually, the first person who went in after me, I went in and had my last cigarette like in May of '84. A few months later, I received a letter. This letter said, "Dear Dr. Cooper, you don't know me, but I've been watching you. 18 years ago, when I was in nurses training, I attempted to stop smoking. It was the most unbelievably painful thing I've ever tried. You've made it and survived when you helped me." And so I called the woman up. I knew her husband, did not know the lady. I called up and I said, "Are you serious?" And she said, "I'm serious." So my wife and I took the lady and her husband out to dinner. She smoked 7 cigarettes during that meal.
Oh, wow.
You could still smoke in restaurants back in those days. And I said, "I will take you through this program." I took very careful notes. "I'll take you through this program if you will follow it precisely." And she said, "I promise." About 3 months, she said, "This is too good to waste. We've got to bring some other people in." So that's when we started. And in 1985, in June, we did our first group. 22 people in the room. Dr. Clayton and I had never led a support group. We found ourselves in need of learning fast. So I would lead the group and he would listen. And then next week he would lead the group and I would listen. And people taught us what we know. Occasionally they'd come up with a question we couldn't answer, and we'd go running to the professional literature to try to find out the answers to that question. So the patients that we were dealing with educated us.
Okay. And so this is a program you and Dr. Clayton created, and then now you've actually taken it out to others. So let's talk a little bit about how that has expanded outside from just the groups that you and Dr. Clayton have led. What is out there now, and how can people get involved in the classes?
Well, the thing that made the most difference in this program over the 25 years is when the Kentucky Cancer Program decided they would start working with Cooper-Clayton and would promote this program and take it out. Currently, 50 health departments offer this program on a regular basis, and 20 hospitals offer it on a regular basis. So the introductory week plus 12 treatment weeks, they repeat that cycle 4 times a year, and I'm staying busy training new facilitators to run the program in all the places where it is operating. Right. We've never tried to go beyond beyond Kentucky. I grew up in Tennessee. That's where I started smoking. But we've never tried to go beyond Kentucky. We don't have the network. And the Kentucky Cancer Program did have the network that has made this all happen. So we are forever grateful to them.
Well, and we certainly enjoy the partnership we have with you as well. Let's talk real briefly about Kentucky, since we kind of focus on Kentucky with this. What are the actual number of smokers that are in Kentucky? We're the tobacco state. That's one of our major crops. So
it's embarrassing. Yeah, it is embarrassing. The thing that makes Kentucky unique, number one, this is a big tobacco growing population. And second, it is accepted for a young person to start smoking. You see a 12, 13-year-old smoking. Jamie, the younger they start, the more difficult it is to get them off cigarettes later.
Right.
So not only do they start young, but cigarettes are cheap. And it is socially acceptable for a young one to smoke. 28% of Kentucky adults smoke. That is dramatically greater than anybody. Almost 1 death in 4 in the state of Kentucky is attributed to cigarette smoking, and that's sad.
Right, it is.
Yeah, that is sad. Kentucky Cancer Program and Cooper-Clayton are doing what we can to try to hold that down.
Right. And one thing I've noticed too is employers are taking a greater interest in their employees' health. And one thing we've noticed here lately is that a lot of companies are actually coming in to be trained to be Cooper-Clayton facilitators so that they can actually offer this program inside their company. And I find that it's interesting because we often spend more hours at work than we do at home. And so those hours away from work, maybe sometimes hard to get to a Cooper-Clayton class, but now you've got employers that are coming in and wanting to be trained, but they're also asking you to come and speak at their facilities too to their employees. And what are the kind of reactions that you're getting inside employers now? There's
a strong social component to smoking. People get together, they take breaks and smoke cigarettes. They get together, they go to break areas and smoke cigarettes. So there's a strong social component in the workplace that's not really present in the home. Frequently we'll have a man who smokes, his spouse does not smoke, and it's fairly easy for that man to stop smoking because he's not going home to a smoke-filled house.
Right.
It's very difficult for a single individual in the workplace to stop smoking when their 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 best buddies continue to smoke. That social influence is powerful. In the female population, for instance, if an adolescent female runs around with smokers, I can predict precisely the risk that that young lady has to become a smoker by the number of her 4 best friends that smoke. If all 4 of her 4 best friends smoke, she's almost 100% chance that she's going to become a smoker.
Right.
A daddy asked me one time, said, I'm concerned about my daughter. And I said, what are you concerned about? And he said, I'm afraid she might start smoking. And I said, why are you afraid? And he said, well, she runs around with 4 girls who smoke. And I said, how long has she been running with those 4 girls? He said, a year. And I said, Daddy, you can relax. Your daughter is not going to start smoking. Your daughter has already started smoking. You haven't caught her yet.
Right. He just doesn't know.
That's right.
Well, and that's one thing too that's, you know, it's sad you see the younger generation smoking at earlier, and it may not necessarily be earlier ages, because we have plenty of people that come into Cooper-Clayton classes that started smoking when they were 8 or 9 even. Yeah, I had one woman one time came in and said they grew tobacco outside her house, and so she would just go roll it up. She'd go make the cigarettes for her dad, and she would just smoke them too.
But we made some progress. In 1965, 52% of American males smoked. By the year 2000, we had cut that to 26. 32% of females smoked in 1965, and we've cut that to 21 now. So we're making some progress. That's nationwide.
Right.
In Kentucky, we have a little bit taller hill to climb because we have people who are smoking a little bit higher rates. But we are making progress.
Okay, good. Now, we've talked briefly about what nicotine replacement therapy is involved in with Cooper-Clayton class, which is the gum, the lozenge, and the patch. But there's also some other replacement therapies that people can use. And could you briefly just kind of talk about those, because you're the expert in all this?
There are two other methods that are available with prescription. We do not incorporate them in this program.
Right.
This program is nicotine replacement therapy. So we use the same drug the individual is addicted to give them a controllable dose and then slowly retrain the brain. There's some risk involved in those other drugs that we simply do not want to get involved in. They act in a totally different manner, and so we limit the participants in the Cooper-Clayton program to using either the nicotine gum, patch, or lozenge.
Okay. All right. So there's other things that are out there. There's also different programs that can help, but this definitely 13-week class with a support group. What is it about a support group with other people around a table that makes the difference, you think?
Number one is a learning environment. If Sarah has a problem and says something to you as the facilitator, you probably answer the same question that Sue had over here and that Jim had over here. So number one, they share problems. A very real spirit of cohesiveness develops in those support groups. You've seen this happen. Plus the fact there's a strong teaching component there and an accountability. If it's just you, Maslow's research years ago says we're more concerned about what other people think about us than we are what do we think about ourselves. So a smoker out there by himself or herself says, I'm not going to smoke anymore. That's one thing. A smoker makes a commitment before 12 other people, I'm not going to smoke anymore. There's a group accountability there that helps because they're much more likely to keep their promise made to the group and in the group environment than they are if they just make the promise to themselves.
Right. And now we talked about a facilitator. There is a facilitator in the room with them, and that depends. You've obviously trained them across the state, but they're not really the leaders of the group, and we focus on the video a lot. So let's explain a little bit of what the facilitator's role is.
The facilitator is taught to direct the group through the program. The facilitator has a kit that contains a DVD that has 13 segments. They play the introductory segment the first night, and Dr. Cooper and Dr. Clayton explain the program. The individual goes home and records every cigarette for 1 week, comes back. Then based on what their smoking patterns were, week 1 video tells them which of the replacement products would be best for them based on how much they smoke. Then they come back 7 days later and we say, okay, you need to understand what's happening in your body now. You're no longer getting cigarette nicotine, you're getting nicotine from the gum patch or lozenge, and here's what's happening in your body. And then they come back 7 days later and we play another, or the support group leader plays another segment of the tape. So we do all the teaching. The individual does not have to have any professional expertise. It is not even important that they ever smoked.
Right.
Just as long as they go through the training and know how to use the materials that they're provided with to help the individuals in their group to become non-smokers.
Okay. And each week they get handouts, and there's different topics each week, like you talked about in the video that you all discussed. And one thing we talked about earlier was weight gain, and so we talked about the physical component, and then we talked about the nutrition part. And one thing that you talk about in the program that I think is really neat, and a lot of people out there don't really understand it, is they always talk about different things that they crave, or you know, food becomes a big issue for them. And you talk about apples in the video. Right. So what's the big secret about apples while you're trying to become a non-smoker?
Apple contains a more complex sugar. You have a candy bar here, and you eat that candy bar, that's an instant sugar that's available. The apple has a much more complex sugar, and it takes the body longer to break it down. One of the more famous soft drinks that we have used to advertise, take this product at 10, 2, and 4. Well, that's nice. That's when blood sugar levels are the lowest, 10, 2, and 4. And we get that dragged out feeling because we have a transitory hypoglycemia. And so we get low blood sugar and we're sort of dragged out. Well, that's when a smoker would slip a cigarette in there because this nicotine suppresses insulin output and blood sugar levels tend to rise up a little bit, and so they get a momentary surge in blood sugar levels by smoking a cigarette. Well, since they don't have that anymore, we want to give them some ways to keep their blood sugar more stable. An apple, mid-morning and mid-afternoon, does a wonderful job of stabilizing that blood sugar level.
So 2 apples a day will keep the cigarettes away, right?
Oh, I like that. We're going to write that down.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, one other thing that I definitely want to talk about before we run out of time is nicotine replacement therapy that we do talk about, the gum, the lozenge, and the patch. We talk about the name brands instead of ones that we may go and buy over the counter that are the store brands. What's the difference between those?
There's a huge difference, and this is not opinion. This has been tested scientifically. There is a patch, and I'm going to call it, I have no stock in the company. I've never received no income from them. The people who either make or sell these products. The Nicoderm CQ patch is the patch that we use. It produces the highest blood nicotine levels of any of the patches, and it produces it much faster.
Right.
The store brand patches go from 5 to 10 hours before they reach peak blood level versus 1 to 3 for this one. The store brand patches produce 44 to 70% as much nicotine in the blood as Nicotherm CQ. They simply don't produce high enough levels of blood nicotine.
And that's important because you definitely want to stay comfortable while you're going through the process.
Very important.
And so we've had several people that have tried to do store brands before and they just haven't been able to quit, and that's why.
I had a woman come into our class about 3 months ago, and she walked in, she said, "Do you remember me?" And I said, "Your face looks familiar, help me." She said, "I went through this class 10 years ago," and said I was very successful. I got off of cigarettes, and I won a trip to France with 3 of my fellow salespeople, and they were smoking, so I decided I could have one, and I got hooked again. So I came back and said, "I'm okay. I have the patch on." And I said, "Well, how you feel?" She says, "Terrible. I don't remember feeling this bad before." And I said, "What patch are you wearing?" And she told me, and it was a store brand patch. And I said, "Please leave and go buy. Get the best tool you can. You're fighting a major enemy of this nicotine addiction. Take the best tool that you can." And by the way, it cost in the 12 weeks of the program about $300 less to use the best patch than it does to continue smoking 12 weeks.
There you go.
So it is not costing them money, it is saving them money.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked about a lot today, and definitely talked a lot about the Cooper-Clayton method. What is the one thing you want the viewers out there today to take away from today's topic?
I would like the viewers to take away that smoking is probably one of the more destructive behaviors that they can practice. Help is available. Cold turkey is not a good way. I'm not selling this program. Dr. Clayton and I gave this program to a nonprofit corporation. I'm not selling this program, but I'm saying if you have a problem with cigarette smoking, and if you don't, you're going to have probably, find some help. Call the Kentucky Cancer Program and find out where you can get a class of the Cooper-Clayton to help you make that transition from smoker to non-smoker. It's worth it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cooper. It's always a pleasure to visit with you and talk to you.
Thank you, Jamie.
And we hope that you enjoyed today's show. And if you have questions about when the next Cooper-Clayton program will be starting in your area, please give us a call at the Kentucky Cancer Program at 270-442-1310. Thanks again for watching today's show. I'm Jamie Smith, a Cancer Control Specialist with the Kentucky Cancer Program, and we'll see you next time.